This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
Hello, Reporter Room investigators. How are you guys today? My name is Jessica Della Davies. Come on in, come on in. We have a lot of stuff to dig into. I'm Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist. My job is to investigate crimes, potential suspects, and criminals, and share with you how to consider suspects, crime scenes, and opinions and evidence. So everything I'm sharing is my opinion, and opinions are not facts. Please subscribe, smash the like button, and thank you to our subscribers, our mods, and our channel members. If you would like to be a producer or a channel member, just hit the join button. We wouldn't be able to get through this without you. And our head mod is 6 Cents Amelia. So if you would like to have your name appear like this and have a check mark in our check marks are red, blue, and green. You'll see our channel members. All right, so we have so much stuff to dig into today. You guys, we are going to be talking about the Idaho 4 case. Why were there 4 victims instead of 6? We're going to be discussing that 911 call and the roommates. Who was unconscious? What really happened? I have some new information for you on that. We're going to talk about the real reason that BK used his own car with evidence, proof that BK was stalking the victims, not just the house, not the 12 pings, but actually following the victims. I'm going to show you that. And could BK's need for dominance have been a motivating factor behind these alleged crimes? If so, how did this desire for control escalate into what happened on November 13th of 2022? We're also going to be talking about the 2 surviving roommates. Why was one being reported as unconscious? What really happened? I have some more information on that. And if we have time, we'll go into Locard's principle. But oh my gosh, I told you guys that BK was changing his tags when he got back to Pennsylvania, but I found some new information, something that we're going to dig into today that shows even more about that. And I'm going to talk about, well, we're going to start with BK got pulled over by police at night in his Hyundai Elantra, just minutes from the house. That's the 1122 King Road house, where he allegedly did away with Ethan, Maddie, Kayla, and Xana just 3 months before he did away with them. And I'm going to be talking about this case in terms of BK. He is presumed innocent. He has not been proved guilty in a court of law. But if you like to have all of the information and you are a critical thinker, then you are in the right place. So let's start. Let me say hello to chat, and then we're going to get into this. Please start leaving me your questions, comments, guys. We're going to get right into this. Hi, Brother Mike. Hi, Enjaz. Denise is here. Jory's here. Julia's here. Bob. Rita's here. Thank you so much for coming out today. Mike is here. Cynthia's here. We're going to have such a good live stream today, you guys. Candy's here. We have so much stuff to dig into. Never is here. Micro Kimmy's here. Pam is here. Lynette. I'm perfectly imperfect. Loaded hot. Oh boy, are we going to have a great live stream. My dog is here. Deb is here. Kami. Please start letting me know. Hey, Pam. Florence. Holly. Susie. Let me know where you're from. Jane. DM. Mike. Stacy. Virgo. If you want to join the top chat, you just need to be subscribed. Subscribing is free. All right. So let's get right into it. Oh, I didn't say hello. Hi, Patty Cakes. Oh, I don't know why it's frozen there. Let me take this down. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So BK was pulled over late at night in his Hyundai Elantra. Can you guys hear me okay in the chat? Yes? Okay, great. It froze for on my screen froze for a second, so I kind of panicked there. Okay. So BK was pulled over by police late at night in his Hyundai Elantra, just minutes away from the 1122 King Road house. Now, this happened 3 months before November 13th of 2022, when Ethan, Maddie, Zana, and Kaylee were all done away with. Now, a citation from the Latah County Sheriff's Office, which was obtained by the Independent, reveals that BK was stopped by police on August the 21st for failing to wear his seatbelt. And get this, the traffic stop took place around 11:40 p.m. at the intersection of West Pullman Road and Farm Road in Moscow. So he was in the area. This is not one of the 12 phone pings times. This is another time. So just a 5-minute drive from the 1122 King Road house. Let's go through this article together. Okay, so we don't have all the details, but police sources told CNN. So we have multiple sourcing for this. That BK was a teaching assistant, was leaked. His DNA we know also matched through the genetic genealogy techniques. It also was matched to the knife sheath with a cheek swab in the octillion. An octillion is a number with 23 zeros behind it. So that's, means it probably was him. So what was going on? Well, we don't know why he was in the area, but we do know that he got this citation from the Latah County Sheriff's Office. The Independent received it. My sourcing here besides CNN is also the Independent, which is a paper out of the UK. So they stopped him on October the 21st for failing to wear his seatbelt at around 11:40 p.m. near just 5 minutes away from the 1122 King Road house. So was he headed over to the house or headed back? We know that from the cell phone pings and from what I shared with you last week about the blue snarfing, that BK was at the house. It's not clear what he was doing in the area at the time. They don't know, but he was driving that white Hyundai Elantra. And I'm going to share with you the real reason he changed those tags. And we're going to talk about the 911 call and the roommates. So why was he hanging out in the area of this house? This is going to help prove that phone pinging was him, because they have this traffic stop to match up with the phone pinging. Let me just check in and see what kind of questions you guys have. Go ahead and start asking questions right away. Let's go on the questions. Mike says, I bet he was at the 1122 many times over the 12 times without the phone, maybe even on a bike. Would be interesting to find out how many videos they have of him leading up to November 13th. And Cirrus says, have you seen the video of the supposed message leaks from Stephen Gonzalez to Brett Norton? Bob says 23 zeros for the biggest zero in the news today. Well, we'll see, Bob. Marilyn says he has to go to another university, to another universe. Oh, sorry. Before there'd be another person with similar DNA. You're right. My dog says, sorry, I'm deaf. I'm not able to follow, so I will leave it all to you. You'll get closed captions will be available. Usually YouTube puts them up within 24 hours, but you can stay and hang out and read the chat if you want to, my dog. Hockey Guy says no DNA of the victims in his car, though. Not that this is according to the defense. The only person who's told us that there's no DNA in BK's car, apartment, and office is Ann Taylor. She's the only one that's told us this. No one else has told us this. So, but she's also told us that BK likes to take long drives and that she can't possibly be ready because, for this summer, even though he's been arrested for over a year. She can't possibly be ready this summer. She needs until 2025 before she can put on her case. And of course, the defense team wants to delay. Why? Because as we delay, then witnesses tend to scatter, right? Kids graduate from the university, they move away. We know the two roommates are already out of state. People's memories get more foggy over time. So it's to their best interest to delay, right? And Jazz says he was also a runner. He ran miles at night too. Yeah, he was known to run. And Stacy says, is this the one stop they haven't released information about? Yes. We have very little about it. Mike says he had a month. No DNA doesn't mean he didn't clean it. They will have evidence of the cleaning. They watched him clean meticulously, not missing an inch. Yeah, if you haven't seen my other live streams that I've done on this case, you'll want to go through those. I talk about Kaylee's Bluetooth. Did Kaylee solve her own doing away with? I'm watching my words. I went over through that in last week's, but I'm not going through that again today because I have so much other stuff to dig into. I have so much information. I don't know if we're going to get through all of it today. I have 5 packages ready for you. Jeff says, do you think BK maybe picked up on how often they lock the sliding glass kitchen doors? It's possible, but it's so easy to pop one of those sliders. You just lift it up a little bit and it pops. So it's really easy to pop. And we don't even know if it was locked or not, but that's a great question. Keep your questions coming, guys. Brother Mike says, we don't know if there's any BK DNA anywhere else. That's right. And the only one who's told us that there's no DNA evidence is Ann Taylor. And I'm not saying she's not telling the truth. I'm just saying it's in her best interest to get an alternative narrative out there. The prosecution has not said anything. They haven't given away anything about this. So anyway, Stacey says, imagine planting that single cell DNA and not. I don't think this was planted. I think this was on the knife sheath. Roommates had 8 hours to clean also, but they didn't, because from all reports, the crime scene was awful. Hockey guy. It was absolutely a mess. It was so bad. And I'm going to talk about the roommates in just a second, and the unconscious and the 911 call. I have some new information for you on that. But I'm also going to talk about the real reason that BK drove his own car to the crime scene. I've seen you guys asking me questions in your comment section. I went through and I did the research for you guys. We're going to dig into that in just a second. Mike says also defense said no DNA. If there is any way she hasn't seen it yet. So just waiting for the real facts. Right. If you don't think defense attorneys, they can tell you what they believe is true. And she said this early on, before she, even by her own words, she claims she didn't have everything yet. Right. So she said this early on. So we don't know if it's true or not true. It might have been true to her at that time, but we don't know that that's not true. If you don't think attorneys cannot tell you the truth, then consider Jose Baez in the Casey Anthony case, blaming George Anthony. I'm not saying Jose isn't telling the truth or not, but most people don't think George Anthony had anything to do with what happened to Kaylee. Most people do think Casey Anthony did it, even though she was found not guilty. Jane says, I hope the judge does not let her delay for another year. I don't either. The defense is, going to want to delay. So leaving other DNA behind. Well, there's 3 male DNAs, and I've heard saw some comments of people saying, yeah, they didn't test the male DNA, the 3 male DNA profiles. Guys, if they didn't test the 3 male DNA profiles, how do we know they're males? So, I'm going to push back on that and just say, I think that they did know, but all the comments are welcome. My dog says, for some reason, the subtitle icon is not available. They don't do it live. They have to do it after because they don't know what I'm going to say. And she can't hear me. Can you guys tell my dog? They'll add once I'm done with the live stream, then they'll add in the subtitles. John says, BK probably used the missing shower curtain to cover his car seat. Could be, or yeah, that could be. Pam says Craig B. All right, let's dig into this. We have so much stuff to go through. And So why did we have an Idaho 4 and not an Idaho 6? Why didn't BK do away with everyone else that was inside the 1122 King Road house? Consider the fact that there were 4 people at the house, and how many cars were parked outside? 4. There were 4 vehicles parked outside the house, not 6. So did BK believe that he had gotten everybody that was inside the house? Remember, Bethany was sleeping downstairs and Dylan had only recently moved to the second floor. So even if BK knew that the other 2 roommates, if he had gone through the house, unless he knew Dylan moved upstairs, he wouldn't have known that she was there. Also, the roommates came home way earlier. They were home around 1 a.m. in the morning, whereas everybody else came home much, much later. It was after 2 a.m. in the morning before the other 4 arrived. So if he was, circling and watching and waiting or checking on the Bluetooth, or watching the Twitch stream of the grub truck video, then he would have known. And I'm going to talk about new information regarding the 911 call, the roommates, and the unconscious person. And we're going to talk about this vehicle and the car tags, the real reason that he waited, in just a second. So why would BK need dominance and control? And did this control spill into actually self-sabotaging himself? Did he project a rejection without ever meeting his targets, Maddie, Xana, or Kaylee, one of which he was stalking? And I'm going to show you proof that he was following them, not at the 1122 King Road house, but that he was following them, in just a second. Did BK convince himself that he was the guy who traveled across the country from Albrightsville, Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, lost 100 pounds to look better, to get clean from his medication problems, to pursue a PhD, but still in his mind, did he decide he wasn't good enough and he was going to take control? Did he do away with Ethan because he was so angry at his perception of being ghosted by his target? Because taking someone's life is a way to exert dominance, in my opinion. So did BK's need to exert dominance and control escalate into violence? And I'm going to tell you the real reason BK used his own car and show you proof that he was stalking the victims, not at the house, but elsewhere, in just a second. But I want to talk about the roommates and that 911 call. Let me grab this package. Let's see. Okay, so let me just tell you about this 911 call. Okay, so my source for this is Yahoo News. Quote, the 911 call alerted law enforcement to what happened. I'm watching my words, so I'm quoting, but not quoting that part. Of the 4 University Idaho students, we haven't known what happened. Why was there an unconscious individual reported at the home? Well, the call was made from a cell phone of one of the 2 surviving roommates at around 11:58 a.m. on November 13th. This is again according to Yahoo News. And the dispatcher was speaking to multiple people. Remember, I shared with you that Ethan's friend, how they discovered the crime scene was Ethan's friend was looking for him. They had apparently some kind of plans that day. He couldn't get a hold of him. So he knew he was with Xana. So he went over that morning to find him. Instead, he walked in on the crime scene, got one of the roommates' cell phones, and called. So the officers arrived at the scene. It, apparently was really horrible. Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan had all been done away with. And so since then, we've had all these questions as to why the caller reported to the 911 operator the unconscious individual when officers described the crime scene as one of the worst they had seen. So why are we talking about somebody unconscious? Well, I did some digging for you guys because you guys were asking me in the comment section. A potential reason for the mysterious 911 call was that, and this was in Airmail's article titled "The Eyes of the Killer," The civilian employees at the Whitcomb 911, which is the agency that services Pullman, Washington, and handles the 911 calls to the Moscow Police Department, as well as several other law enforcement agencies. This agency was very understaffed to such an extent that the dispatch guild had previously warned that, quote, our ability to uphold public safety is at risk, end quote. So under standard protocol for this 911 operator service, when callers are, quote, agitated, the dispatcher will often assign the call with a generic label. And guess what the generic label is? An unconscious person. Okay, so you have to think about what Ethan's friend walked in on and what was going on when this 911 call was made and how horrific the crime scene was. So I'm sure the caller was agitated. So if the caller's agitated, it was their protocol to label it an unconscious person rather than waste valuable times and resources trying to gather specific details. So in this case, it is possible that the dispatcher assigned the generic label while speaking to the students who were probably freaking out, panicked by what they saw, and passing the phone from person to person, that this is how we got the unconscious person 911 call narrative. And I'm going to talk about the real reason BK used his own car and show you proof that BK was stalking victims in just a second. But I want to check in with chat. And then we're going to get into the next part. Please post me your questions, guys. Hockey Guy doesn't think you can get rid of DNA, not just by cleaning. I think you can. Sure you can. Brother Mike says, oh, let me get to the questions. Okay. Holly says he probably did use the shower curtain. Denise says, I can imagine. Can't imagine there is no DNA. Well, there is DNA on the knife sheath, right? There is DNA on the knife sheath. But I do question whether Anne is telling us everything or if she put that statement out there right away before she read everything to get that out there. Remember, she has been trying to get her own narrative out there through motions. And Penjam says, do you think they're hoping for less public interest as time goes by? Well, that's why the defense, it's always benefits a defense team to delay, because they're hoping for less public interest, but also witnesses tend to move away. Some witnesses may pass away. Law enforcement people retire. They benefit by delaying. And that's why she wants to wait until the summer of 2025. Loaded Hot said, didn't the police watch BK clean his car and then retrieve the cleaning supplies from the trash? I don't know about the cleaning supplies. That's a great question. I don't know. This is why I love reading your questions. But they did watch him meticulously cleaning his car. This had to be so frustrating. So they were staking out the Brightsville, Pennsylvania parents' home of BK. And when they arrested BK, he was in his kitchen wearing those medical grade gloves, sorting out his personal trash from his parents' trash. That's not recycling, guys. That's sorting my personal trash from his parents. And then they had watched him on multiple occasions taking his personal trash down to neighbors' trash bins, which, by the way, they did get the trash out of the neighbors' trash bins. But they also had to sit there, and they were staking it out from January 27th through January 30th when he was finally arrested. They had to sit there and watch him again in the middle of the night, cleaning that car meticulously. They said from inch by inch, wearing, again, medical grade gloves. That had to be so frustrating for them. So yes. Stacy says they didn't say there isn't a blood trail didn't they also say there isn't a, no, they never said that. It was so horrific inside the crime scene that some of the law enforcement that responded had PTSD and needed counseling. It was so graphic. And for those of you that, we're going to talk about the roommates in just a second, but for those of you, and we're also going to talk about the fact that he was watching and following the victims prior, not counting the phone pings. This is different. And we're going to talk about the real reason he drove his car in just a second. Hockey Guy says you can't just get rid of DNA by cleaning your car. You would have to take everything apart. Not if you Dextered out the car. You wouldn't have to take out anything. Just put some plastic sheeting down. Here's how I think, and this is some, speculation warning if you guys, but what I think happened, because we know Dylan saw a masked man dressed in all black with bushy eyebrows, with an athletic build but not muscular. So that kind of describes a runner, in my opinion. And Bethany says she told according to the Daily Mirror, that she saw somebody that didn't have anything on. So what I think happened was that he came in dressed in his monkey suit, which is why we have that Dickies receipt in the affidavit. He had to carry the knife and the knife sheath because his belt with the knife sheath wouldn't have fit around everything. So he was cut himself pretty dextered out. I think he had plastic sheeting on the car seat and floor. It would be so easy to do. And remember, his phone went offline an hour and a half before we saw the Hyundai Elantra circle the house 3 times before doing a three-point turn and pulling in. So Bethany reports seeing somebody that didn't have anything on. I think he stripped off everything, threw it in a trash bag, and carried it out to the car. And this is why he didn't notice until later that the knife sheath was missing. And the knife sheath was found by 2 police officers that day, underneath and to the side of Maddie. Yeah. Oh, I always forget. Please hit the like button, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks, Holly. Las Vegas Girl says, I don't think they locked them often. They never thought this would happen. I would bet that he had gone by several times and tested the sliding glass door before it happened. Yeah, you might be right, Las Vegas Girl. I mean, this town had not have anything like this happen in 8 years. And that's why I do commend the Moscow PD, because unlike what happened in the John Benet Ramsey case where they tried to handle it themselves, the Moscow PD immediately called the Idaho State Police and brought them in, and the FBI, and the FBI came in with 30 agents. So they got all hands on deck right away. We're going to talk about the fact that BK was stalking the victims. We're going to go through that and the real reason he used his own car in just a second. Let me take a couple more questions and then we're going to get back to all the information, because I have 5 packages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a 6 if we have time. Mike says, exactly. BK didn't get in there by chance. He knew how to get in. Either it wasn't locked and he knew it, or he possibly rigged a window lock previously. Bob says, there are hearing impaired people who come to watch your updates. Can you enable subtitles? I cannot, Bob. YouTube controls that, and they will add the subtitles in once the live stream is done. So I'm so sorry. I'm not able to control that. Thanks for the thumbs up. He's digital information over 50 terabytes. Right. And if you want to know more about that, I went into Blue Snarfing and the fact that I believe that Kaylee actually solved her own case. Hockey Guy says, I would have been told already if there was DNA in his car. We all know that there's no DNA in his car. It's already been leaked. It hasn't been leaked. The only person who said it is Ann Taylor. So she told you. She told us. And the 8-hour time gap, do you know how much? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. Stacy says, how about being the only person who allegedly saw the scene and didn't need counseling? I don't know. Jory says, lawyers aren't allowed to lie. However, if she hadn't read through all the discovery documents, and technically she wouldn't be able to float a false narrative. I don't think she's sketchy. I think she's doing what she needs to do for her client. But I mean, and they're not allowed to knowingly lie. But that's why she said, I believe she said that early on, before she read through. Remember, she was also claiming that she didn't have everything at that time. So I don't know if it's true or not. Las Vegas says, that's true, Hockey Guy, but I believe he wore a mechanic suit, booties, gloves, mask, and after the murders, he took off everything. That's right. That's why I think Bethany saw somebody without wearing anything, got into the car, so he didn't contaminate the car. I also think it'd be so easy to put some plastic sheeting down. Remember, his phone was offline for an hour and a half before he arrived at the 1122 King Road house. That was plenty of time to Dexter out the car. Better Call Saul. Yeah, that's a great analogy. Mike says there's no evidence according to the defense. Why not go to trial? Yeah, why? Well, it's, why wait? Exactly. Jane says, poor George Anthony. Casey Anthony is disgraceful. Yeah, if you want to say that, oh, the attorneys always tell us the truth. It's a fine line. They have to tell you what they believe is the truth. But what someone else believes is the truth is not the truth. Does that make sense? So you're just sharing what you know um, the best about that. Hey, Stephanie. Denise says, do you think BK burned evidence that night while on his drive after the crime? I don't know if he burned anything. I don't know what happened to it. I think he put it all in a plastic bag. And it wasn't till he got home that he probably realized. And I think that's the reason that he went back to the house at 9 a.m., why we have that phone pinging at the house at 9 a.m. Some people think it was to look at the crime scene to see if law enforcement had responded to enjoy what he had done. But a lot of us believe that the reason that neighbors reported, you guys remember those reports of neighbors saying that front door was open? A lot of us believe that the reason that that front door was left open was that, and that Van's shoe print was found outside Dylan's door, is that he went back into the house. Bob says it was a party house. I'm surprised there isn't 1,000 different males' DNA present. And I'm sure they ruled out. And the fact that they know that Ann Taylor knows that they're male, that should tell you that they were tested. Of course they were tested. How would you know they were male DNA? Ann Taylor, if you're watching this, how would you know if it wasn't male DNA if you guys didn't test it? And if she was so worried about it, she has all these DNA experts. She can test it. Crafts and Crimes say exactly they were tested. Jane agrees. Pam agrees. Stacy says, have you seen the picture of the guy who left his burner phone on a farm in Washington? Looks just like BK. No, I haven't. They did test the other DNA, but they weren't in the system. Well, they had a lot of the guys came in and to rule themselves out. They provided DNA to law enforcement. But who didn't provide their DNA to law enforcement without a court order? BK did. And I'm going to talk about the car. I'm going to talk about the car, the real reason he used his own car. And we're going to talk about the roommate, the victims, the fact that he was following them before these crimes in just a second. Claudia says, the ex has always been suspicious. I don't buy what the roommate survivors are saying. Well, that's okay if you don't have to. This is a Critical Thinkers channel. I'm going to bring you all the information. Well, what do you think he did with that? I don't think he would have brought it home. So as I said a few minutes ago, I think he stripped everything off. But I think law enforcement's going to show you that Dickie's receipt that he had one. I think they're going to show you that he had put together, what they call in hunting, a kill kit. So it's not, to me, it's not that hard. I'm just, and Emma says her door was locked. Yeah, Dylan locked her door. She closed the door after the third time looking out and locked it. Holly says, only his DNA on the sheath. Do you believe it was planted? She's asking Hockey Guy. I don't think it was planted. If you were going to frame somebody, why would you frame this guy? Why not frame the ex-boyfriend or frame somebody that would be, a lot easier to frame? Stacey doesn't think Bethany was there. I'm curious why you think that, because she told law enforcement she was there. I don't think she would just be making it up. And Jess says, I think BK had one or two victims in mind. Well, I think you might be right. Dana says, right, BK wasn't in CODIS. No, he wasn't. And when he got arrested, if you wanted to exonerate yourself, what would you do? You'd provide your DNA and rule yourself out. But that's not what he did. He started talking to law enforcement, and then he refused to give a DNA sample, and law enforcement had to go get a court order to get the cheek swab, which they ultimately matched. Jane says, I always wondered why Xana and Ethan, what did he have against them? These kids didn't even know him. None of the four knew him. None of the four knew him. Sirius Black wants to know why I'm not talking about Jack D. I did. I have videos about Jack D, but he was ruled out by law enforcement. Las Vegas girl said maybe the suit was buried or tossed. Could be. Mike says if they were going to frame Bryan, the DNA would be easy to find. They had to double test this knife sheath at a special lab. Exactly. It'd be like so many more easy people to frame than this guy. Jory says, do you believe BK was under surveillance from the day his identity was uncovered? If yes, they probably have a lot more evidence than we can imagine, including things like the shower curtain. Well, we know they don't have the shower curtain, right? We know they don't have that. But I do think there's a lot of stuff we haven't seen. And Jazz believes Ethan and Xana were collateral damage. All right, well, let's talk about BK and the victims. If you haven't subscribed, please do like, share, and leave me a comment. BK is innocent until proven guilty. I am talking about this case in terms of him because he's the only person who's been arrested, indicted, and charged. So we're also going to talk about a former student which spoke out about BK's demeanor after the fact, and we're going to be talking about photos of victims on his phone and the fact that the real reason why he used his own car in just a second. But let's start with let's dig into proof that BK was stalking the victim. So cell phone data shows that BK was often in the same location as the three sorority sisters. Okay, so that's Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie, and one of their boyfriends. That would have to be either Ethan or Jake, because Jake was Maddie's boyfriend. So he was often in the same location as them. So let's go through that together. This is the New York Post. So it says, cell phone data shows that Bryan Kohberger, 28, was often in the same location as the three victims, female victims, and one of their boyfriends. I'm going to assume this is Ethan, but I don't know for sure. Before he allegedly did away with them, I'm watching my words. He also seemed very careful about not leaving fingerprints in public as he fled to his native state of Pennsylvania. And I'm going to tell you the real reason he used his own car in just a second. The source said, quote, he's not stupid and has been very careful. This is someone who claims to be close friends with one of the police officers. I'm going to give this source like a C rating, this particular part. But the Daily Mail, they would have vetted their source. This is someone else. This is for the New York Post. So he followed him into a giant Pennsylvania grocery store, and he said BK wore gloves the entire time. Not sure if they ever interacted. This was law enforcement, but his cell phone pings followed their every move. So his cell phone pings followed the victim's every move, not just the 12 times that we've been told about in the affidavit. Remember, the affidavit's just the tip of the iceberg, but his cell phone pings followed the victim's every move. So this was for Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana. Remember, Kaylee thought she had a stalker. Her dad said that. Steve Goncalves said that out of the gate. And this photograph, this iconic photograph, was posted at around 8 p.m. on November 12th of 2022, just hours before they were done away with. So BK would have known that Kaylee was at the house because she posted this photo of herself with the students. So BK was arrested on January 30th of 2023 in a pre-dawn raid at his parents' house in a gated community in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. His sisters, aunts, and uncles lived close, and his sisters reportedly believed that he had something to do with it. But the source says, I've been so invested in this case the last 6 weeks to just find out how close he is to us, and that one of our friends found him and arrested him is just crazy. So he knew Kaylee and Maddie and Xana and Ethan were all at the house. He knew Kaylee had come home because she posted this photograph. Michael Kohberger, I don't think he knew anything about this, had flown to Idaho to make the 2,500-mile trip back with BK after he finished his PhD. I think he went there. The trip was planned. So BK was described as being super awkward and a little off. And we've heard this over and over by students in the criminology, justice, and criminology department. He did not change his behavior or routine in the weeks following. Police had honed in on the DNA evidence and BK's car, which was seen at the crime scene. The undisclosed forensic evidence was linked to BK after it was run through a public database, two law enforcement sources told Saturday. So the FBI, this is how they found him. They tracked BK for 4 days before making the arrest while working with local law enforcement to develop enough probable cause to get that warrant to make the arrest. Despite reportedly wearing gloves while shopping and adopting a business-like routine, or business-like as usual type routine, his arrogance may have created the DNA trail that led police. And I think the fact that he was wearing gloves when they arrested him, he was in his own house wearing medical grade gloves, not kitchen gloves, medical grade gloves, separating out his personal trash from his parents' trash. I just, people have said, you can put it whatever. And we're going to talk about Locard's exchange principle. But if somebody like this was really a student of criminology, they would understand that certain things like Locard's exchange principle, this is according to Professor Joseph Giacalone. He's a retired NYPD detective sergeant who teaches at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, told the Daily Beast. So this is another source. The Locard's principle basically says that every contact leaves a trace. So Locard's means that you leave a trace behind and you take traces with you. Remember, they found the two reddish blood stains on his pillowcase, and they found hair and animal hair, human hair and animal hair. We don't know anything about those things yet. The only person whose word has said that no DNA has been matched to BK at his home, car, or office was Ann Taylor, the defense. And this is before, even by her own admission, this was well before she claimed she had everything. So did she just rush out there with that narrative to get the narrative out there? And it did, get a lot of people, or, was that just the truth as she knew it at that time? But, prosecution hasn't said that. Law enforcement hasn't said that. The only person who's told you that and told me that is Ann Taylor. So according to Locard's theory, every contact leaves a trace, which means that's how come we have this DNA on the inside snap of that knife sheath. And we don't know if the hairs that were found at his apartment, the dog hair, if that matches to Murphy the dog or Buddy the dog. We just don't know. For those of you saying, he couldn't have dextered out. Well, we know from the affidavit, we saw the Dickey's receipt, and I went through all the receipts that law enforcement got on another live stream that I did at the end of January. You're welcome to go through my live streams. Every live stream I have packed it full of information. So did he wear a Tyvek suit? What was he not going to get that so he wouldn't get caught? Was he covering his hair? Did he wear booties over his shoes, knowing that he was going to be stepping through a lot of blood? So they believe that this was a well-organized, thought out, planned out attack. But Locard's theory prevailed because he did leave his DNA, and octillion is 23 zeros behind the main number, 24 digits. So that's the chances are it was somebody else. And the 3 male DNA that everybody talks about, if it wasn't tested, then how do you know it was male? How do they know it was male? Of course they tested it. Again, the narrative that they didn't test the 3 male DNA is not going to float because Ann Taylor would have a field day with it. So in my opinion, they tested it. They ruled people in or out based on the DNA that they found at the crime scene. So BK's educational track has led some people to speculate if he was studying to be able to become a better criminal. It's rare, but it's not unheard of. As I shared with you last week, he's not the first person to do this. BK reportedly asked volunteers to speak at their most recent criminal offense as part of his research. I don't put any stock into that at all. To me, that's a nothing burger. That would be part of his research. So that doesn't set off any red flags for me. I don't know about you. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And we don't all have to agree, guys. We don't all have to agree. I don't have to agree with everything you believe. You don't have to believe with everything that I'm sharing. But what I'm going to try to do is bring you all the information I can find, address the comments and questions that you have in the comment section to the best information that's available. And I'm digging through, spending a lot of time researching before I'm doing these live streams for you guys. But BK had been mocked by classmates for being socially inept and overweight in high school. I believe this helps to establish the profile of why he did this. His former classmate, Sarah Healy, told the outlet, explaining that some of the girls in her class would throw things at him. That's not nice. But throwing things at somebody doesn't mean you get to go and do away with other people that didn't have anything to do with it, or do away with anybody. There's definitely something off about him. Like, we couldn't tell exactly what it was. It was just weird. But Bryan was bullied a lot. I never got a chance to say something to defend him because he would always run away. So, the overweight teen had developed some very weird eating habits. I talked about that in my live stream, that I felt like this was the medical information that was agreed to be excluded from the trial by both the prosecution and the defense. The fact that he had eating issues. I have to watch my words. But let me grab the next one for you guys. Let me check in with chat too. Let me grab the next one. We have so much stuff to get into. We're going to be talking about photos of the victims on his phone, and proof, and the real reason why he was okay. The real reason. Let me grab this one. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Why he used his own car. All right. Let me check in with chat really quick. I don't want to get too behind. Dana says, hi, Dana. I think Bethany ran out the front door and escaped, possibly. Maybe came back at noon with people. I have not heard anything about that. My understanding is just like in the Travis Alexander, Jodi Arias case, the roommates were, sleeping. They heard noises. They were probably irritated. I'm sure Dylan was a little bit freaked out to see a strange man in the house. She locked her door, but I haven't heard anything that Bethany ran out the front door. I haven't heard anything about that. But if I come across anything, I will for sure let you know. Your comments are great, guys. Please comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Jane says maybe the last two were an afterthought just because they were there. Could be. Yeah. Or it could be that DoorDash that they came out of the room, or the way their bedroom was situated. Remember, that house had an addition. We had the first and second story. That was the lower level, right? And then the addition was the second story and third. If you look at the house sideways, you can see the addition. So there may have been an outside wall in between the first, second and third story. So sound may have traveled differently inside the house. I don't know. Las Vegas girl said, I think Xana and Ethan happened because they came out of the room when he came down the stairs from doing away with Maddie and Kaylee. Hockey Guy says there's a lot to this case we don't know, and I think there's definitely something going on with the roommates being involved. I don't think the roommates were involved, and I'll tell you why. For those of you that were at my live stream last week, I shared with you about Travis Alexander and Jodi Arias. Travis Alexander also had roommates. Travis was in the house, in that bathroom on the floor, and it was just as gruesome of a crime scene, except it was just one person, not four, but just as horrible what she did. And I'm watching my words. They were in the house with him for days, not hours, not 8 hours, days. Days. And it was Travis's friends that came over looking for him because they were supposed to go on a trip. He was supposed to go on a trip to Mexico, and his roommates didn't have anything to do with it. Loaded Hot says they also had no reason to believe that the other two DNA had nothing to do with it. Oh, I'm sure they tested all the DNA. They tested everything they could get their hands on. Jory says, I agree. I think that's why the front door was open. Yeah, I think so too. Bob Williams says, BK is not being framed by anyone. He's just not as smart as he thinks he is. Yeah, I think he's intelligent, but this whole stereotype that we have of serial killers, that they're, Hannibal Lecter, psychiatrist, medical grade, high IQ. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. Most are average and lower intelligence. So my opinion is that he psychologically is average intelligence. Socially, I think his social intelligence was really low, because we read his XR posts about his visual snow, where he talks about viewing himself as a sack of meat, viewing other people as a sack of meat. That was depersonalization, in my opinion. And I think that he, did view people as sack of meat. So I think although he was smart, I don't think he was, genius smart. But I think socially, he was not smart at all. And book smart doesn't mean you can do it, that you can carry it out. Stacy said, I heard she was with the Hunter Johnson, which makes complete sense because he was there in the morning. I don't know who she is. But Las Vegas Girl says the roommates have nothing to do with this. They're going to be good witnesses. I think they're witnesses, but I don't think that they did anything. I think because of the gag order, that people have been able to attribute any theory they wanted. And I could have attributed bizarre theories and made videos about that too. But I believe you guys deserve to have credible information that's based on evidence. And that's what I'm following. And that's what I'm bringing to you guys. And you guys can decide for yourself. I'm not here to tell you whether he did it or didn't do it. That's completely up to you. But if you like to have all the information so you can decide for yourself, then you are in the right place. And you guys make up your own mind. All opinions are welcome. All I ask is that we share them respectfully, because we don't all have to agree. And that's okay. BK had no game. He creeped girls out. Yeah, I think that, the fact that his father had to ask the neighbor to be friends with him is odd. Jane says, I think you're right. People like that are extremely jealous of others. Yeah. Mike said BK was just rashly unlucky, happened to be driving around a house at the time that they were planning on framing him. Oh, he's being sarcastic. I thought you were serious. Okay. Happened to be driving around the house. Yeah. He is either the most unlucky person ever, which is possible, or Occam's razor. He did it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. All opinions are welcome. Mike says, really unlucky. Yeah. Dana says, I would have run for my life. We're going to talk about, tell you the real reason that BK used his own vehicle in just a second. I'm going to show it to you in just a second. So please stay with me. Dana says, I would have run for my life. Life's too short and gotten away. Stacey said, what if he was stalking and witnessed something and that's why he fled the scene? What would he have witnessed, and why wouldn't you just stay on the scene and report it? Why wouldn't you call 911? You wouldn't just leave. If you witnessed something, you would call. And again, how would his DNA get on the inside of that knife sheath if he was just a witness? It just doesn't make sense. But maybe it makes sense to you, and that's okay. Bob says, I presume him innocent until all the evidence came out. Hockey Guy says, he wouldn't have taken his phone. He wouldn't have taken his car. He was an electronics expert as well as knowledgeable with criminal justice. He would have known these things. Well, I'm going to tell you why he brought his own car. And as I showed you last week, his electronics expertise is actually working against him, because I believe Kaylee helped to solve her own case, just like Paul Murdaugh did in the Alex Murdaugh case. I believe that's the reason that law enforcement hung on to her Bluetooth. I believe his phone was logging on to Kaylee's Bluetooth. And that's why I went through the blue snarfing information in last week's video. I'm not going to go through it again, though, because we have too much other stuff to get into. But you're welcome to go back and watch that one next. Let me try to get to some people who have not had a chance to comment. And let's see. Val says all 4 had different patterns done to them. Do you have a source for that, Val? Because I haven't been able to find. I've seen that in the comment section, but I haven't been able to lock anything down. Hi, Claudia. Las Vegas girl said, "Oh yeah, because he had so many friends that he could borrow their car." I don't even think that's the reason, but I'm going to share with you why he used his own car and why he believed this wasn't going to come back on him. But yeah, it could have also been a lack of friends. Who was he going to borrow the car from? He could have rented it, but that would have been traced right back to him. But I have some other stuff to share with you too. Also copied Ted Bundy targeting sorority girls. Yeah, he studied. Some people love true crime, and I love true crime. I know a lot you guys do too. Some of us love true crime because we're, interested in how they think, and we find it interesting. Some people like true crime though because they identify with the perpetrators, and this is a minority of people. Stacy said the roommates didn't call. Do you know that, Stacy? Because I have not been able to find out. My understanding of what I have been able to find out is that Ethan's friend called. That's who called 911. The roommates were asleep. He knocked on the door looking for Ethan that morning and knocked on the door and went upstairs, and he's the one that found the crime scene. So my understanding is that he borrowed a phone from the roommates, and I don't know if it was because she couldn't speak or what. And the unconscious thing I just explained to you. My dog says, "Sorry, I can't follow. Have a great night." That's okay. If you have hearing impairment, you'll want to watch this after, but you're welcome to join me in the top chat. I still would love to have you, but I understand. I totally understand. And they can't do, YouTube can't do, on a live stream, they have to wait for it to be over for them to add in the subtitles. The 8 hours the roommates waited is too suspicious. I don't think it is. 8 hours is a normal amount of time people sleep. I think if you just heard noises and you were annoyed and you saw a strange man in a party house, I think your first thing wouldn't be, "I think all my roommates have been done away with." I think you would be annoyed and irritated that they were, Kaylee's awake playing with Murphy, the dog, and waking you up. And these were young single, so not all were single, but young women having a man spend the night or stay over for a few hours wouldn't have been that unusual, in my opinion. Berta says, "I believe Ethan was collateral damage." You may be right, Berta. Denise says, "For BK to be framed, how could all the law enforcement and FBI?" Yeah, to frame him, you would have to have collusion from the Moscow PD, the FBI, all the people that work for them too, and the Idaho State Police. All 3 law enforcement and all the CSI, everybody would have to be in on it. The cover-up started with the gag order. I think the gag order was put in place to protect the integrity of the case because so much stuff was getting leaked. I forgot about Ted Bundy copying him. Hake said there were many, many people there before the police arrived. That's not true. Please provide me with a source for that, because I haven't been able to find any evidence at all, and I have done some serious digging on this case, that there were many people there before the police arrived. Ethan's friends stopped by to get him. They knocked on the door. One of the roommates answered. He found the crime scene. I don't know if the roommate went upstairs with him or if he just then got the phone from her. And it was reported as an unconscious person for the reason that I just shared with you a few minutes ago. And for those of you that are going to come into the comment section and say that I'm biased and that you're, because I'm just going to say this, I'm just following the evidence and the information that's available and putting the pieces together with credible information to the best of my ability. I don't have a dog in this hunt. It doesn't matter to me if he did it or didn't do it. But I will share with you this. If I wanted to just go for clicks and views, I could have told you there were tunnels under the house. I could gin up the whole thing with the roommates. I could do all kinds of stuff. I'm not doing that. I am really working hard to bring you credible information and let you guys decide for yourselves what you think. Las Vegas Girl says he thinks he's the smartest guy and thought he could get away with it. Sears says, well, why do you think he is sketchy? He did nothing wrong at all. I don't know who he is. The two girls have been cleared by law enforcement. Yes, they had a really rough interview. From what I understand, they were interrogated. They were heavily interrogated. Holly's right. Well, Hockey Guy, it seems like you have your mind made up already, and that's fine. But this is for people who are more open-minded and haven't decided one way or the other, or maybe they have decided but still want to have more information. But we appreciate your ideas. We appreciate your input. Michelle is right. But I think there's a small percentage of people, no matter how much evidence the prosecution puts on, that even if they had a video of him doing it, that they still would not believe it. Bob says too many pucks in the head. I don't know. Dana says one of the roommate's phones is where the 911 call came from. That's correct. She may have passed out when she got there and was told by the other hunter. That I think it's possible she may have passed out, but I already shared with you earlier in the live stream of why. Please give this video a thumbs up. Okay, Stacy says they used the roommate's phone, but they wouldn't tell who actually called. I told you who called. It was Ethan's friend, and he will be on the stand. All right, let's go on because I do want to get on to the next part, which I'm going to talk to you about the real reason that BK felt comfortable using his own vehicle. Let me grab that for you. Okay. Let me get this. Oh. Okay. All right, can you guys see this? All right, BK switched out his license plate just 5 days after November 13th. This is why he felt comfortable doing his own. I thought he changed his license plate when he got back to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. That was my theory. And then I found this. This is the New York Post. So let's go through this together. Can you guys see it okay? Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure. All right, so BK got a new license plate for his car. 5 days after. So in November of 2022, he got himself not a renewal of his tag, but a brand new license plate. Why? Why get a brand new license plate? He planned to do this ahead of time. That's why he felt comfortable, in my opinion, using his own car. BK swapped plates on his white Hyundai Elantra, the vehicle that became the focus of the police investigation before he was arrested 5 days after what he did to, in my opinion, to Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee. Allegedly, he is innocent until proven guilty. Police in Moscow, Idaho had put out public requests early in December for information of the driver of a white Hyundai Elantra that they had seen. And we know from, if you didn't see my live stream on the footage that was provided to the Washington State Police and Washington State University campus police, there were 5 different videos. So authorities have believed that the occupant of the car could have, quote, critical information to share. That's how they initially told it to us, right? So BK had registered his 2015 model, which was a couple of years newer than what police initially said, but they did update their information twice during the search. So he knew he was going to change out his tags. And this is why he felt comfortable changing out his tags prior to what happened. He felt comfortable driving his own car because he knew he was going to change his tags after the crimes. And that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what he did, you guys. And we're going to be talking about Locard's principle and photos on of the victims on his phone in just a second. Let me check in with chat. Mike says he was obsessed. Yes, he knew technology. He knew he could just say he was driving around. What proof would there be that he was in the house? He messed up dropping the knife sheath. Yeah, that's Locard's theory. Locard's principle, which is that every contact leaves a trace. So I, don't know if there's DNA evidence in his car, but I'm not going to take Ann Taylor's word for it. I'm going to wait and see what the prosecution has to say about it. Dana says they did say friends were gathered around outside the house. Who is they? Maybe after police were called. That's possible. I believe that happened, but not prior. The 911 call was made. DNA degrades after each cleaning. You're right. Wow, you are great at digging. Thank you. Thank you, A1. I appreciate it. I do try to put a lot of time into researching stuff for you guys. I want to try to bring you credible information. You deserve credible information on this case. Pam says he was sitting on the shower curtain in the car. Maybe, or maybe he just is worried that he got DNA from showering when he got back to his house. But I do think it's interesting that he went to go visit his parents, but took a shower curtain. Just so many weird things. One thing you could explain away, two things you could explain away, three things you're starting to see a pattern. Now when you're talking about phone pings, and then now they have him following the victims around, not at the house, but actually literally following them around. Now we're starting to see a pattern. The fact that his Bluetooth was connecting in, we're seeing a pattern. The bloodstain doesn't hold DNA after time and cleaning. We'll see what they have, because the only person who's told us there's no DNA is Ann Taylor, and she said it early when, by her own admission, she didn't have everything. Claudia Wells says it was a horrible scene. Those victims, well, it depends. I think he practiced, and I think with a 7-inch blade, you can go for areas that would make it very hard for anybody to make any noises. And so we don't know that. Welcome, Lead with Love became a YouTube channel member. Welcome to the Reporter Room family. Jane says she believes that Ann Taylor is very calculated. Yeah, her job is to give BK the best defense possible. And I think that she's doing that. She's doing a great job. Jane says, I was in a terrible custody case and Dad and his lawyer lied incessantly. Yeah. Look at what's going on with the Gabby Petito Brian Laundrie case and Steve Bertolino. He said that the family didn't know what happened to Gabby, right? And now there's evidence coming out that they knew something had happened. Layla says, with all of his CJ schooling, I think he knows how to get rid of DNA. Well, I hope so. Yeah, all of his criminal justice schooling. 8 hours later, too. That's faster time than in the Travis Alexander case. And the roommates in that case didn't have anything to do with it either. It was Jodi Arias. Jory says, I believe DM Dylan or Bethany did call 911, but the police didn't take it seriously because the girls didn't know if anything seriously was wrong. It was a party house, very noisy, and law enforcement knew that. Well, I think that it was Ethan's friends that found the crime scene and that he borrowed one of the roommates' phones to call. And I think it got put in as an unconscious person because that was their protocol, as I showed you earlier in the live stream. That was the protocol. Jane is welcoming you. Oh, this is an argument. Okay. Bottom line, BK hid his DNA trash so well, they had to use his father's trash to get the DNA. Think about that. Yeah. And my understanding is they did go, I did do some looking into this. They did go and get his trash out of the neighbor's trash bins as well. They did get that. So again, we haven't heard anything about that, but I know they did collect it. I was able to verify that. Truth Exposed, it's amazing that people don't know the difference between a coroner and a medical examiner or a forensic pathologist. Okay. TBI is a terrible thing. TBI. I don't know. For some reason, that's making me think of the Summer Wells TBI. I'm not sure. And Jazz says, I agree. Not much rumors. Much of this is documented. That's right. There is a receipt. There is a receipt. Look at it again. Pam said, not a professor, only a failed teaching assistant. Yeah, he wasn't, he didn't, and that got let go. So he was under a lot of stress too. Okay. A teaching assistant, but well educated. I think that's fair, Jean. I think I would agree with that. Truth Exposed says the autopsies were not okay. I'll look into it. I'll find out. Jane says all opinions are welcome. Let's stay polite. Yeah, please don't argue in chat. It's okay to have a difference of opinion. Just, be mindful that other people might feel differently too, and that everybody's entitled to their own opinion. What if it's not BK's real dad, and that's why the IGG is such a big deal? Well, then, if you want to throw the IGG out, which the prosecution is not even using, and you don't think that BK's dad is not his real dad, which there's no evidence of that at all, then the cheek swab, which was what BK did not volunteer, they had to go get a court order after they arrested BK on January 30th of 2023. They got a court order to get a cheek swab because he wouldn't give his DNA voluntarily. And they've got the cheek swab, and that matched in the octillion. So it doesn't really matter about the IGG. I know the defense wants to talk about that. All opinions are welcome. Let's stay polite. Absolutely. Thanks, Jane. Penny says hydrogen peroxide destroys DNA, evaporates quickly, it leaves no trace, not detected. Truth Exposed says there is a Dickies receipt. Thank you. Receipt for purchase and tag on the garment. Thank you. You're right. Leela Lou says a family member of mine was done away with by her ex. She was 16. Dad's ex was a police officer, a cop. There was no DNA, not even his own, in the car, which was the most. Well, that is interesting. Yeah, sometimes the lack of something can mean something too. Berta says police made sure to say otherwise to keep some details close to the vest. Yeah, they've been trying to keep as much information. Mike says, I wonder about the hairs found, several hairs and one animal hair. All right, so let's get back to this for a second, and then we'll come back to chat. Keep your questions coming. You guys have awesome questions. So photos of the victims on his phone. Let me grab that. Now, we don't know if these were pictures he took himself, if these were pictures he downloaded. Well, let me grab this. Okay, so he had pictures of the victims allegedly on his phone. A phone that belonged to BK was collected after his arrest, according to the source. Authorities found pictures of the victim on his device. The source did not specify whether they were photos he had taken of her or if they were downloaded from his social media. It could also be that when he was accessing Kaylee's Bluetooth, allegedly, that he was able to get access to photos that way as well. But it says, quote, he had more than one photo of her. It was clear he was paying more attention to her. So according to the probable cause affidavit obtained We've seen it too. One of the victims' surviving roommates said that she did see BK, and that is going to be Dylan. We know that it's Dylan now. And here is the other. BK had repeatedly messaged one of the victims on Instagram. So 2 weeks before what happened on November 13th, I'm watching my words, of 2022, an investigator came forward, and the account says that authorities believe that an account that authorities believe belonged to Bryan Kohberger sent a greeting to one of the female victims. The source says when he didn't get a reply, he sent several more messages to her. He, quote, slid into one of the girl's DMs several times, but she didn't respond, the source says. It was just him saying, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? But he did it over and over again. And I'm just wondering if, on social media, it seems like it kind of falls to the person who has the account to block, but like I don't read my DMs. So it's probably most likely that the girls didn't even know that whoever he was DMing, that he was DMing them. But according to the probable cause affidavit, one of the surviving roommates said that she did see him. And the affidavit also alleges that Bryan Kohberger was linked to the crime scene from DNA and the cell phone pings. Authorities have remained tight-lipped about the alleged motive. They have not publicly discussed the relationship between BK and the victims. BK's now deleted Instagram account, which was viewed by people and also was viewed by the Goncalveses, Steve and Christy, has now been removed. And I'm assuming law enforcement would have taken that down. It's not clear why BK didn't get a response to his messages, but they believe that the victim may have missed the messages. She may not have seen them because they went into message requests. I don't read my DMs either because most of it's just spam or foreign princes trapped in another country that need money from me to help them. So, quote, she may not have seen them because they went into message requests, said the investigation source. Instagram users are not notified when they receive a message from someone they do not follow, and the messages go into a special folder. We are still trying to determine how aware the victims even were of his existence. There's no indication that he was getting frustrated with her lack of response, but he was definitely persistent. And we also heard from Steve and Christy Goncalves, and Christy Goncalves described this in her Dateline interview, and she said that he was looking at Maddie's photos and that he looked at Kaylee's too, and he was following both Maddie and Kaylee on Instagram, but on Maddie's, he had liked every single one of her photographs. So I think that's really interesting also. Let me grab this for you. We're going to talk a little bit about lurking around the college campuses in Lehigh Valley. Let me check in with chat. We're going to go into that next. And just to be clear, it was somebody in the comment section that said BK was not related to his father. There is no evidence that anyone has put forward that Michael Kohberger is not BK's father. But it doesn't matter because that's not the evidence that the prosecution is putting. They are taking the cheek swab from BK, and that's what matched the DNA on the knife sheath to the octillion. Okay, so I hope that helps. Las Vegas says, what do you know? Dickies makes a mechanic suit. Yeah, and there's a receipt for it in the affidavit. Jean said, I know that it was easiest for me to type. Well, okay, some of you guys, Pam thinks his eyes are creepy. Dana says he had access to the suits they issue to suit and go to crime scenes. Lila says, I bet his DNA was absent in a lot of his own stuff because he cleaned it. I bet you're right. Stacy says, prayers for Ann Taylor. Lots of laughs. Dana says, he has blue eyes, but they look black every time I see them. It could just be the light on the photography where they have to get rid of maybe the red eye or something. I'm not really sure. Wayne says, if prosecution has the right guy locked up, why still a gag order? Only increasing the speculation day by day. That's another reason why we just need to get this trial on the road. Let's go. I think the delay tactics need to stop. I'm not buying that the prosecution is ready to go, but the defense can't go until summer of 2025. I think that's just a delay tactic. I think let's go. Let's just do this. And I wish there wasn't a gag order too, because I think so many things have been attributed to the roommates, to the gag order, but there is, and it's court imposed. This wasn't decided by the prosecution or the defense, and it was put in place to protect Bryan Kohberger. That's why the gag order was put in place. It was put in place to protect him. But they took the mouth swab from BK and matched it to the DNA from the knife sheath. That's right. And that's why the dad, that's what Ann Taylor wants everybody to talk about. That's why she keeps bringing it up. That's what she wants to talk about. She wants to talk about this family genealogy. That's just how they narrowed, and I went through this also in the live stream, how they narrowed the search down to land on BK. But that's not what prosecution is using to match BK to the crime scene. They're using his own DNA that they collected with a court order from his cheek. So thanks for that, Loaded Hot. All right, let's see if keep your questions coming, guys. Jory says, I think Bethany saw him outside because she was already hiding outside. I don't think so. I think she would have called 911 once he left if she had been outside. Holly says he knew everything, but his rage got the best of him, in my opinion. I think he would have been really, really angry. And I think, and I do still think this Buddy the dog is not unrelated. On October 21st, he got that email from his professor telling him that he was failing, in his job as a teaching assistant. And I think he would have been enraged by that. So I agree with that. Lead with Love says lawyers know how to word things. Yeah, she can say what she believes to be true or get a narrative out right away. We haven't found any DNA in his car, office, or home. Okay, well, maybe the defense team didn't find it. Or maybe she hadn't gone through the information. She said she didn't have everything yet. But I haven't heard that since then. So we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. Stacy says, if he was framed, who bumped into Bryan to get skin scraping samples to plant on the sheath? Who forced him to buy a K-bar knife? Who forced him to buy the Dickies, which doesn't have belt loops? Thanks for that. Jane says she thinks he went back to get the knife sheath. Yeah, I think that was the reason for the 9 a.m. Truth Exposed says, who forced him to drive around the house like a shark that night? Yeah, he circled over and over. Mike says, I think he stashed evidence on the drive home and then retrieved the items after the 9 a.m. visit and buried the items at the forest area. His phone was off from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Yeah, and that, I think, what did they find in the car? They found that shovel, right? So it could be. John says he thinks he went back to look for the knife sheath. All right, so let's go through this together. Lurking around the college campuses, because we have a lot of information to unpack. Okay, so if you don't know, his parents' home is in a gated community. And this is just giving you kind of a little bit of a background, like a deep dive into who he was. So this is according to Steve Novak. He's a reporter for Lehigh Valley. Sometimes getting local news is really interesting. You can get a lot more information from local news sources. So they say that BK would have been indistinguishable from any other college students, young adults, recent college grads, or graduate students in and around, going around the Lehigh Valley. This is according to Steve Novak. He's a reporter for the Lehigh Valley Live.com. So he says that BK spent years at the Lehigh Valley studying at both Northampton Community College and DeSales University. And this is his friend Ferraro. Ferraro says, at the time I would have never said, oh, yeah, this guy would do something like this. He may have been a little odd or a little off. And we keep hearing this, a little odd or a little off, from multiple people. This is another person. But other than that, you never expect him to be part of a crime like this. So as a commuter student, BK came and went from DeSales. During his undergraduate psychology studies, he kept to himself. He didn't show any outward signs of being menacing. It's not always the creepy guy with glasses and oily hair creeping around the corner. It's sometimes just that average Joe that on the inside you have no idea what he looks like. And on the outside, they may seem just like a normal person, much like BK did. And think about BTK, Dennis Rader. He was a deacon at his church. So in 2018, Ferrara teamed up with BK for a biology report. They worked together for the entire semester. So that just gives you a little bit of an overview from, somebody that knew him and was a friend. I just want to give you guys some background on him. So let's talk about BK and his studies under the Dr. Catherine Rimsland, who wrote a book about BTK. So he would have studied under Dr. Ramsland at DeSales. Now, she's been reached out to for comment, and her comment was this: I'm making no statements about Bryan Kohberger and will not be interviewed for any stories that feature him. So she's not talking about it. But this is what Ramsland said. Have I come face to face with psychopaths? Absolutely. The coldness, the lack of remorse, definitely. Some people call that evil, but we are finding that it might very well be a brain disorder. And you go back and you think about those posts that BK made on his XR Visual Snow about not feeling any emotions. He knew his dad was a good man, but he didn't feel anything toward him. And Dr. Ramsland says the brains of what we call primary psychopaths who seem to be born with this brain disconnect are definitely different. It allows them to be better predators. And think about how BK looks. He looks, in my opinion, predatory. He has his mouth pursed. And I think as I told you before, I believe he has a superiority, not inferiority, but superiority complex. And then his eyes are darting around. And to me, it just looks very much like a hawk or a bird of prey if you look at his eyes. So, I think he does look predatory. So she says, not all psychopaths are criminals. Most aren't criminals. Not most don't hurt anybody. And this is Dr. Ramsland saying this. You don't have to take my word for it. If they choose that, it allows them to be very effective, better because they don't really have any remorse over what they are doing. And I told you last week that I felt like his lack of anxiety and lack of remorse and lack of worrying would have made him more likely to get caught. This is how these guys get caught. They don't feel fear. They don't feel nervous. And that's why they sometimes make mistakes. So Ferrero believes, so this is his friend, believes that BK snapped. I think he's just sick. I think people online want to make it into this fairy tale and make it grandiose and much more than it is. If he had done this, I think he's a sick individual that finally just snapped. So let me scroll down a little bit. Okay, so I want to talk about 7 sirens because I brought this up, but I didn't show you guys the receipt, so I wanted to bring this up. So according to multiple reports, this is local to Pennsylvania, near where BK's parents were. So where he grew up, where he attended DeSales University. So according to multiple reports, BK frequented the Bethlehem brewery known as the 7 Sirens while he was attending college in the area. People who have been interviewed said BK allegedly made multiple women uncomfortable, so much so that records of his strange interactions were kept. They kept cards on file for him. But that doesn't mean that he did it. But it's another thing where BK's having problems with women. BK's having trouble. He told one woman he dated she had nice birthing hips. One female class member said that he tried to walk her out to her car. It made him uncomfortable. He got in trouble for grading female students differently than the male students. So, this is like, again, it's a pattern. One time, okay, you can make an excuse. Two times, when you start to see three or more times, you start to see a pattern. So, did he have some conversations? Was he acting differently after this happened? We're going to talk about that in just a second. Let me check in with chat. I'm like so behind. Let me scroll down here. Okay. Holly says, you can change the brain with trash too. Jane says, psychopaths have no emotions. Yes, brain disconnect. Hey, Matrix Rabbit. He didn't feel anything because he was well, that's part of the medication issues are part of the pathology of sociopathy because as I shared with you last week, medication would make him feel something. Remember, I told you that psychopaths get bored. They don't feel anxiety. They don't feel upset. They don't feel they also don't feel, intense feelings like we do. And he talked about this in his XR visual snow post, a feeling like an empty sack of meat, a meat sack. He also, and this is really concerning, was viewing other people as a meat sack. So there's a disconnect in the brain. So the medication goes along with that. They tend to be more likely to become addicted because the medication addiction, I'm watching my words, makes them feel something. It's entertaining. So that is part of the pathology of this type of personality. Mandy says college kids sleep until noon on weekends, especially after a night of partying. Yeah, and they were out. And they said that not everybody got into their rooms till around 4 a.m. Holly says grandiosity. I think that sums it up perfectly, Holly. Mike says no one really witnessed the crime. DM can give her statements as Dylan, but she may not have to be on the stand. She's not on trial. I think she is going to be called as a witness. I do. And that's why I think let's just get this show on the road. Let's get this trial up and going. I'm not saying we have to do it tomorrow, but I don't think we need till the summer of 2025 either. I think that's a stall tactic. And Jazz agrees. Sirius Black says, I love him. That is so wonderful that you know. Oh, I think this is something else. Denise says BK superiority. Yeah. Micro Kimmy says she taught him through a virtual class. Thanks for sharing that. Maybe that's why she doesn't want to comment. Maybe she doesn't know him. If she was giving the class virtually, then she wouldn't know him, but he would know her. Micro Kimmy says, I'm a huge dork, but thank you. Donald, hey, good to see you. There is more proof in that home. There has to be more proof in the home. Well, we don't know. We won't know till the trial. Jane says they don't feel fear like we would. They're eerily calm. Exactly. Micro Kimmy says he doesn't blink. And we saw this with like Elizabeth Holmes, right? She's the one that owned that company. She got in all kinds of trouble. Remember, had a blood testing company that supposedly could just test your blood instead of doing a regular blood draw. You could just get a drop, right? And there are like videos of her. She never blinks. She just stares. And again, they don't feel nervous. That's why they don't blink. They don't feel anxiety. That's what they don't blink. They don't care if you like them or don't like them. So they don't blink to try to make you like them more. And you're right, Matrix Rabbit. That's exactly. Psychopaths are born, sociopaths are created. That's what we believe. Mike says, I was in a place crime happened. I didn't see anything. I only heard stuff. I gave statements. I never took the stand. Even though they wanted me to, I didn't have to. Well, I think she is going to be subpoenaed to take the stand. They can subpoena you. Hey, Pam, glad you're here. Loaded Hot says, I think BK used some thick hair gel or glue to keep all his hair in place, not to leave anything. Yeah, or just even a little, just like what they wear in surgery, those little hair nets or a hat. He had short hair, just put a hat on, and he would, a beanie hat. It was cold. It was Idaho winter. Just a beanie hat would keep your hair in place. But yeah, it could be that he used some hair gel too. I don't know. Arlene says BK was too confident and believed he was smarter than everyone else, except he wasn't smart at all. Hey, Mandy, welcome. I just found your channel. Love this. Confirmed facts only, no conspiracy theories. I'm trying to follow evidence-based information. You guys can decide what you want. I don't have a dog in this hunt. I know people come in and they're like so convinced that one way or the other way. I'm just bringing you all the information. You guys can decide for yourself. Maybe a shower cap could have been put on. Yeah, that's possible. Could have been a shower cap. Could have been a beanie. Could have been a hat. BK superiority reminds me of Charlie Adelson's attitude that he is better than all the prosecutions. I don't know who that is. Sorry, guys. But thank you for sharing that. I just go back. Molly Rose, what did I miss? A lot. Jane says they say they don't blink or yawn when other people around them are yawning. Weird aspect to their behavior. Yeah. Yeah, yawning and behaving and mirroring other people is a way that we fit in. And socially, humans are very social going back through the ages, mirroring each other's languages and blinking and getting closer to other people. That's, how we stay together and work together to be successful. But sociopaths tend to be loners. We've heard him being described as socially awkward. Leslie says, I do wonder what his family was. Aren't his sisters both in the mental health field? Yes, both of his sisters have their degrees in psychology. They're both licensed mental health professionals. You are correct. And BK got his bachelor's degree in psychology. Six Sense Amelia is our head mod, if you guys don't know. Hey, Amelia. She says amygdala is responsible for the perception of emotions such as anger, fear, and sadness, as well as the controlling of aggression. So he would have had reduced ability to control his aggression, but he also wouldn't have felt anxious or worried. So he had his plan for his car. I'll just change the tag. And he did 5 days after. I thought he changed it when he got back to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. But I was not correct about that. And when you guys were questioning me in the comment section, I started digging around, and that's when I found that he had changed it 5 days after. Lead with Love says the student he was in biology, which also said Bryan took over and wouldn't share, so he got an F. Sounds like a bit like Bryan felt like he did at all. Could be. People are welcoming you, Mandy, to our thing. All right. Let me see. Let me grab a couple of people who haven't had a chance to talk. Shan says, hey, Shan, I think they were groggy, intoxicated, and did not suspect something so horrible. For all we know, the roommates could have taken a Tylenol PM. They could have had a few drinks. They could have taken an Ambien or something like that. We don't know. Let's let them have a chance to take the stand. But just remember, Travis Alexander's roommates were in that house with him when he was done away with for days, and they did not have anything to do with it. So I just don't think the 8 hours that it's fair to then say, oh, well, that's therefore they did it. Stacy says, what? Yeah, what snot his doctor's appointment? I'm not sure. I don't know anything about a doctor's appointment. If you have a source for that, leave it for me in the comment section below and I will check it out. Loaded Hot says he has gotten in a lot of trouble for following his students to their cars, asking them out on dates. Females would not be left alone with him in his office because they were afraid. Yes, and it's inappropriate. He's grading them. So it's not appropriate if someone is grading you, if they have the ability to give you an A, B, C, D, or an F, to be able to invite you on a date or try to get to know you personally. It's just not appropriate. So yeah, he didn't have a sense of boundaries. Truth Exposed said Ed Kemper, if you don't know, is a SK, who was interviewed by who's the profiler, the really famous profiler. I'm drawing a blank. If you guys know, let me know in the comment section below. He did Mine Hunters. That's who I'm thinking of. Ed Kemper said he got so caught up in the psychopathic rage that it was all common sense and all his common sense and reasoning was overridden. Ed Kemper has been really helpful to law enforcement as far as like getting to know the mindset behind it. Jane says, welcome, Andy. Micro Kimmy says he tickled his Tinder date. She had hid in her bathroom. She hid in her bathroom and pretended to throw up until he left. That's how uncomfortable she was with him on this date. And then he texted her later and said she had nice birthing hips. So that's not socially awkward, right? Was BK ever on medication? We don't know, Mike. Great question. We don't know. And his medical records, unless it's related to this, would be offline. I mean, off limits to due to HIPAA violations. So they're not going to release that unless it's related to the crime, and then prosecution can bring it in. But I can't just go find out his medical record. That's a great question. But I do think that's why he was self-medicating, in my opinion. Stamina, being a runner, he feared nothing. Yeah, and he had that 7-inch blade. You're right, Donald. And people say, oh, they would have made sounds. No, it depends where, if you practiced, and I believe that he would have, you would have known what you were going to do, and it would have been very, very fast. Do they feel anger? I think they feel some, but just not to the depth that you feel it or I feel it. Mike says they don't have a normal fear or feeling. Right. They feel some embarrassment, some rage. They'll feel like a primal rage, but they don't have feelings like you and I. If we did something like this, we would probably feel remorse, horrible. I mean, I don't think most people would do something like this. All right, so let's keep going through this. So we still have some more stuff to dig into. So literally, like days after this happened, he brought it up. This is Christian Martinez probably is how you pronounce it. Okay, so literally like days after I'm watching my words, happened, he brought it up, and I saw him in the hallway. This is according to Christian Martinez, told Long Crime Network. Martinez lives in Pullman, Washington, in the apartment complex where BK lived. Those are the two things he said. They have no leads, and they think it was a crime of passion. So that's what he thought. And he was changing out his car tags, right? 5 days after this happened. And who else said it was a crime of passion? Papa Roger did, right? Martinez says he just really liked talking to me in the hall. He would talk about his studies like forensics and stuff and criminology and stuff. At the time, it just seemed like normal times. All right, so here we have somebody describing BK as seeming normal. So that's great. Martinez lived across the hall from BK's old apartment. He says he remembers him moving in the summer. He said, I met his dad in the parking lot. He just stopped and started talking to me. So this was Michael Kohberger. His dad was wanting to introduce me to Bryan, and he said something like, and I don't remember the exact words he used to describe him, but it was something like, he has a hard time making friends, or he's kind of shy. So this is the guy, you guys asked me about this guy who had, where, BK had, his dad had approached him, trying to get him to be friends with him. And this is who it is. It's Martinez. He has a hard time making friends, or he's kind of shy. So what else did he say to Martinez? He said, Oh, did you hear about I'm watching my words, that happened? It was so short after they actually happened. There were barely any news articles out, so there wasn't much that I could have read. So I was like, yeah, man, it's crazy. Yeah, of course I heard about them. He was like, yeah. And I seems like they don't have any leads. And then he's like, yeah, it seems like they think it was a crime of passion. So just think about that and then consider going back to the Papa Rogers. I did a video on a live stream on that as well. If you haven't seen that, you'll want to look at that as also. So this is Zach Cartwright. He met BK and he said, I didn't notice him. I noticed he was kind of standing off the entire time. He wasn't very social. We've heard this over and over from people, which I thought he was kind of weird. We've heard that over and over. Weird, odd, strange, unusual. Because it was a party and people were interacting, he was just kind of standoffish. He told this to Law and Crime Network. He just did seem socially awkward and kind of hard to carry a conversation with, if I remember correctly. But besides that, he mainly kept to the side and was really observant. And we've talked about his eyes just always look like they're like open really wide and just scanning. Because he mainly kept to the side and was really observant, so much so that based on one small interaction, he knew exactly who I was, maybe a month or so, when I saw him on a hike. He said when they crossed paths later, it was strange how quickly BK recognized him. I thought it was really weird how he approached me and the people that I was with, because he acted kind of like we were best friends. It was like a reunion or something, and he was really excited to see us. I had no idea who he was right at that second. So this is like, again, socially awkward, socially inept, no social skills. So the FBI did interview this guy after BK was arrested. He said, I did speak to the FBI at one point. I do believe they spoke to a lot of people that were at that party, and maybe because that was one of the first times, if not his first time, in Moscow, Idaho. So I think that's really interesting. Let me check in with chat. Why can't he just feel nothing like everyone else? I don't know. Then he says, I wonder if he was in a treatment. I don't know about that either. If he is, we probably will find out about that, because I think that would be relevant to the case. Thank you. Hearing noises and seeing an unknown nail in a party house would lead nobody to believe their roommates had just been, I want to change the word, done away with. Exactly. Stacey said, how would she know they were in their ring by 4 a.m. if she was asleep? I don't know what rings are, Stacey. I'm sorry. Micro Kimmy says, addiction never goes away. It's just traded for another. Mike says, on and off meds. Jane says she does think Dylan will be called as a witness. I agree, Jane. Mike says, I think I get the trial going and stop dragging it out. Yeah, I don't think, I think she deserves to have time. We do want him to have good representation. But I think, dragging it out until someday in summer of 2025 is way too long. Mike says, I'm thinking she did testify at the grand jury. I'm sure she did. I'm sure she did. Donald says, wow, December 2025. Now thought summer 2025. When did this change? It didn't change. This is what Ann Taylor's asking for. The prosecution wants to do summer of 2024. And the defense wants summer of 2025. And the reason they want summer is because where the courthouse, I showed you guys in the video I put out, I think it was on Wednesday, inside photos of the jail where BK is being held. The courthouse is adjacent to the jail. It's so tiny. And they're going to need to park at the high school, which is right across the street. They're going to need the high school parking lot to get the press, because this is going to be covered. to have press and witness and lawyer and court staff, everybody that's going to be doing this trial, they have to have a place to park. So they want to do it in the summer when the high school is not in session. Yes, Elizabeth Holmes doesn't blink either. Micro Kimmy says, I'm an clean 9 years, sober 2 years. Congratulations. Good job, Kimmy. I replaced them with food. Oh, wow. And now I'm into keto and I stay home if I'm not in class. Wow. Sounds like you've been through a lot, Kimmy. Nancy says, I find it interesting that BK has 2 older sisters, but doesn't like women. Makes me wonder if his sisters bullied him when he was younger. Could be. Jory said, I feel so upset that girls might need to be in the same room with him during the trial, but understand why it's important. You talking about the roommates? Brenda G says, does the prosecution have to give all of their stuff to the defense? Yes, everything they're planning to present at the trial needs to be turned over during discovery, and vice versa. That's why they were like, Ann Taylor didn't want to give an alibi. She's like, well, we're going to just say he was driving around and we'll tell you more at the trial. And the prosecution's like, no, you have to tell us now. You don't, nice try, but you can't wait. There's the nature versus nurture argument. Yeah, you're right, Dana. Good point. SD said, most likely Ramsland, this is Professor Ramsland, won't comment because she would be called as a witness. Maybe, could be. She could be under the gag order. And Jazz says, Mike or Kimmy, you are very brave and well done. I concur. I give you so much props. It takes a lot of work to overcome something like that. And for those of you that don't live in the United States, it is really hard for people to get treatment. It's really hard. We don't have enough treatment centers. And so people are just kind of left on their own. And then what can be called treatment is really loosey-goosey too. They can call horse therapy, where you go out and pet a horse, that's treatment for medication addiction. And it's not. So much props for any of you guys who have been through that and have come out the other side. Thanks for sharing. Recovery is a bear. Good luck with all of that, brave girl. Nice. Love your support, you guys. Nicole says, defense said summer 2025 at the earliest. They just want to rake in the money. They don't care about the victim's family or their clients. It's all about revenue. Well, and I also think it's all about delay, because they benefit from delay. Memories fade. Witnesses pass away. Witnesses move away. It's a college town. So we already know the roommates have changed colleges. Kimmy says the sister's working in the mental health field and him majoring in psychology. I wonder if there's a strong pull. I wonder too. Dana says Ramsden will for sure be a witness, so she is under the order. Hey, Rita. Nice to see you. Glad you're here. If you haven't subscribed to Reporter Room, please do like, share, and leave a comment. Please leave me a comment. I read your comments. I love reading your comments. I think she will be a witness too. Yeah, I think the roommates will both be subpoenaed as witnesses. I don't think it's going to be optional. I think they're going to have to come. Tends to make me wonder what their childhood was like. Yeah, you're talking about the sisters and BK. I wouldn't necessarily blame the fact that he doesn't like women on the sisters. I don't want to because we don't know anything about that. I would be really careful with that. We are your dogs in the Oh, I love that. Thanks, Lead with Love. Jane says Charles Adelson was recently convicted of doing away with Dan Markle. He did this for his spoiled sister. Oh, I'm going to have to look that one up. I am not familiar with that case. He was troubled. From what we know, he was overweight and bullied. Yes, that's my understanding too. So his dislike of women may not have anything to do with his sisters at all. It could be coming from school experiences, being bullied. Hey, Helen. Helen says, I felt for sure BK for sure if roommates had called the law before friends. Well, they couldn't have called police if they didn't know a crime had occurred. If they stayed in their rooms and Ethan's friends stopped by 8 hours later, which if you're sleeping, that's a normal amount of time to sleep. It wasn't like they were in the room for days. So I'm going to push back on that a little bit. Kimmy says, it seems like there have been some dysfunction in the household, but whose childhood didn't have some? But I really want to know what it was like in that home growing up. I'm sure we're going to hear about it because Ann Taylor's going to definitely be preparing mitigation phase. We make our own reality. I love that. Jane says, Donna Adelson had recently been arrested over the Dan Markle case, too. Amelia says, chat community is welcome to discuss and test different theories, and people are involved. All civility expressed. Opinions are encouraged. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not here to tell you what to think. You guys can decide that for yourself. I'm just going to bring you as much information as I can. Denise says, Charlie Adelson was the dentist found guilty of putting the... Oh, okay. I'm going to have to look that case up. Thanks, you guys. And Donald Adelson is the mom. Okay, gotcha. That would be interesting to know. Please give me a thumbs up. Yes, thank you. Yeah, please do. Thanks, Amelia. Jackie says the defense will end up going back 3 generations, mental illness. I think you're right. Kaylee, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Mike said, yeah, she thought it was Kaylee playing with her dog. She didn't think... Right, exactly, Mike. She thought it was Kaylee playing with her dog. She didn't... Your mind wouldn't just go to... And I agree with you, Mike. I don't buy it either. I'm telling you why. And I did find a bunch of stuff in the Alex Murdaugh case that wasn't brought out in the trial. And because I did think that was an awful lot of money that he was spending just for himself personally. And so if I see something like that, I will bring it to you. But I have not found anything like that in this case. If you think about Alex Murdaugh, they had a beach house, they had a main house, they had a hunting lodge on lots of acres. He had lots of money, right? So kind of an Ozark money laundering operation happening there with medications. But in this case, we're talking about kids who are renting a house. It's not the same thing. They didn't even own anything. They didn't own anything. So I haven't found anything. If I found something that would, lead me to say, oh, this is what happened, I would bring it to you for sure. Hey, Glenda. Glenda says, I'm hoping they didn't know what was coming. I hope so too. The next day when BK went to Albertson's grocery store, I think he swung by the 112 house to see if police were there yet. Could be. Wayne says, yeah, he had a doctor's appointment days after. Do you have a source for that? You're the second person who's told me that. I would love to source that out, and I'll see what I can find out about that for you guys for the next live stream. See to it, case 9 says, I believe his plan was to try to confirm the validity of his criminal mind thesis. Oh, wow. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. John Douglas is the profiler. Thank you, John. I couldn't figure out who the profiler was. I couldn't remember. I was drawing a blank there. All right. Well, I have a members only live stream that I do need to do before it gets to be too late. I do want to thank our producers, George Brown, Sasha, Angel, and our channel members. Thank you so much. Without you, we would not have. Thank you to our subscribers, to our mods, to our head mod, Six Sense Amelia, to our awesome channel members. If you want your name to appear here, you just need to hit the join button, but you can subscribe, and that helps me out a lot too. Subscribing is free. So I am really grateful for all of you guys. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I have another Bryan Kohberger video coming out on either Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how fast I can get that edited. So be on the lookout for that. And I will see you next week for our live stream. Leave me your comments below and tell me what you want me to look into next.